Okay, so we need to talk about how to give good comments on your peers' papers. Because I think that the number one problem with most peer review is that you've never been taught how to give good feedback, how to give good comments. And so it can feel difficult to know what to say or how to make your comments really useful. The number one thing to remember is your goal. Your goal as a peer reviewer is to help your partner improve their writing, improve their paper, actually get better. So I have a little graph that I like to use to sort of illustrate the types of comments you should avoid and the types of comments that you should work toward. So here's the graph. All right, we have two axes here. We have on top here the useful comments, and then there are not useful comments. On this axis, though, we have positive comments and negative comments. All right, so let's talk about each one of these categories. Let's start, though, on our not useful side. What do unuseful comments look like? All right, here we have some examples of, let's start at the top here, our positive comments that aren't very useful. So sometimes we think, well, positive is always good. Positive is always a good thing. We should always give positive comments. And it's fine. It's fine to give positive comments. However, there are certain positive comments that really don't do much for your partner. And those include really universal paper, overall, broad strokes kind of comments like, hey, great job. This is a good paper. I can't see anything to fix. I mean, those are all positive things. You're saying nice things, but they do nothing to help. So I'm not saying you should never write down or give positive comments like this. You can definitely give positive comments like this. They don't hurt. You just need to make sure that you give them alongside useful comments, which we'll get to in just a moment. But first, let's talk about these not useful negative comments. Okay, I have some pretty awful examples here. This sucks. This is the worst paper I've ever read. You should start over. I'm going to hope that for the vast majority of us, common decency would imply that you would never give these types of comments. However, it happens, and sometimes it even happens with teachers and instructors, and it never should. You should never, ever, 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 ever give a comment that tears down or makes someone feel discouraged or does anything that, once again, doesn't actually help improve their writing. None of these comments are actually useful. None of them work towards your goal, and your goal is to help them write a better paper, produce a better paper. You can give negative comments all day long as they are useful, but these ones aren't. These ones are not useful at all. So these ones are absolutely prohibited. Stay away from any negative comment that is not useful. Well, then what are useful comments? What do those look like? You can probably guess, but let's talk about the useful positive comments. I have some examples here. I really liked the way you tied this back to your thesis. This transition here was brilliant. I love your dialogue. You should use more of it throughout. Okay, if we compare these two categories, the positive comments that are useful and the positive comments that are not useful, what do you notice? Well, I hope you notice that first, these positive, useful comments are kind of specific. They're not talking about the entire paper or essay in general. They're talking about one specific part. I liked what you did right here. I like the way you did this. And then sometimes they even added this little, you should do more of this. And that's what makes these type of comments so useful. You've pointed out something very specific that they now know they've done this well and they can keep doing it, this specific thing over and over. To give an example of this, in my freshman writing class, I wrote a personal story, and the only comment or the only thing I remember coming out of that class is the comment that my instructor left on that paper, and the comment was, "You write dialogue really well." And that comment has stayed with me, so that every time I've written creative things after that, I've had this thought in the back of my head, hey, that one teacher thought that I did dialogue well, so maybe I should try to do more dialogue. I should try to fit in some dialogue, right? That is what positive, useful comments do. They point out a specific thing that can help your partner know that they did this well and that they should do more of it if they can. All right, the vast majority of your comments, though, are probably going to be in this sector of the graph right here. They're negative comments because you're pointing out something that they've done wrong, but they're useful in that they are actually helping improve the writing or improve the paper. So the most common type of negative useful comment is going to be the editing type comments, correcting grammar, punctuation, sentence level errors, those types of things. Absolutely, I encourage you to make as many of those types of corrections as you can on your peer's paper because they are useful. They absolutely are useful. Those types of errors need to be cleaned up, so if you notice them, definitely point them out and show them how to fix them. These other types of negative useful comments, however, are a little bit more work, is how we'll put it. So this example here, this is a little confusing here. I would rephrase it this way, and then you actually write out how you would phrase it in a way that makes sense to you. Or this specific comment, I would move this paragraph up after your introduction. Okay. So these types of comments are giving very specific feedback and something actionable that your partner can do to fix something, right? It's giving them, if something's confusing and you've rewritten it in a way that's not confusing to you, you're not telling them that they have to use your wording. You're not actually co-writing the paper with them, but you are showing them how it needs to be explained to make sense to a reader, and you're giving them options of how they can rephrase it themselves. Or you are giving them something very specific they can do with organization. Move this paragraph here, move this sentence here, and give very, very specific things that they can actually do to work on. Don't just do the generic question mark, right? That's universal for, I don't know what's going on here. This doesn't make sense. No. If it doesn't make sense to you, or if all you put is a question mark, that communicates very little about what it is that's not making sense. Your partner, it may make perfect sense to them, and so the question mark means nothing. It helps them improve in no way. But if you actually show them an example of how it would make more sense to you, or how you think that they should rewrite it, or what you think they're trying to say, then they can grasp, oh, that's how it's coming across to my reader, or that's how it needs to come across to my reader. Okay? So these are harder types of comments to write than this. These are easy comments to write. These ones don't take a lot of thought. They don't take a lot of effort. They're just knee-jerk, easy to respond. These ones, they take a little bit more thought. They are harder. They also tend to be longer and more involved and more complex. But that's the kind of work you need to do to be a good peer review partner. You need to be giving thoughtful comments, longer comments, more complex comments, comments that actually give them something to do, something to work with, and a tangible way to improve their paper. Okay, so let's summarize that really quickly. First, your goal is to provide useful feedback that helps improve other students' writing. You should never give negative feedback that isn't useful for improving writing. Okay, just remember that. Never give negative feedback that's not useful. In general, you should try to stay away from positive feedback that isn't useful, but if you want to say the paper is great overall, that's fine. I have nothing against positive comments as long as you give useful feedback as well. And then let's remember these. What our useful feedback looks like. Whether positive or negative, useful feedback is specific. points out something very specific, usually longer, unless it's a grammar edit. But if you're giving them options of how to actually fix something or instructions about how to fix something, or you're rewriting something that's maybe a little bit confusing to give them some options or to communicate how it's coming across to you, these comments are going to be longer. And these comments usually take more thought. Okay, you have to work harder for them, but that's part of being a good peer review partner. I hope this was useful in helping you understand how to give feedback. So now you should be ready to go and give great, helpful, useful feedback on your peers' papers.